everyone, welcome back to TV Guys, the show where we talk about TV shows that are older than some of our guests. I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Emma.
And we've got Emma back. That's right. The star performer from our Power Rangers episode has come back, and she's turned the tables because for the Power Rangers episode, Emma had to watch a show that she had never seen before. Actually, it wasn't even the show. It was just the reunion special. And go into it blind. And now we're like, well, let's talk about something that you absolutely love. So her favorite show, right, Emma?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she watches it on a loop, so she has everything fresh. I had never seen it before recently, so I started watching from the beginning. So I've seen season 1, most of season 2, and then in addition to that, both Matt and Emma gave me some episodes to watch. So I've seen a smattering of some of the big ones. So I have a general idea, but there's a lot that I've missed. And so Matt, how much of the show have you seen?
I can't remember exactly where I left off because I remember one of the episodes that Emma picked was the plane crash season finale, and I had remembered that episode, and for me that was when I felt like the show got too big for its britches, where it's like, okay, no hospital is going to go through this much trauma at this point. It's unbelievable. But I know that I also was around when Dr. Maggie came in, and I saw maybe a season or two of her, so I don't remember exactly where I stopped, but there was also in one of the episodes we watched where the fire at it was another season finale. Their big explosion at the hospital right after one of these doctors killed this runaround rapist in the episode before.
Yeah. I saw that one too.
So that was one that I watched. I'm like, I don't recognize some of these characters. Like there's this Dr. Nathan. I didn't have any context for who he was. So I didn't get as far as him.
That's when they did all the new interns, and as they keep adding in interns, you just get confused with everybody who's
especially as I was jumping around. I realized now her name is Teddy, but I kept thinking, oh, that's Audrey from 24, and I just in my mind it's just Audrey, but she's a doctor now.
Audrey from 24.
Yeah,
that's her. Yeah, she looked familiar. I'd never watched 24, but I think, has she been in other stuff? I'm sure I've seen her in other things.
Well, I'm sure she's in more than just 2 different TV shows, but that's what I know her from.
Stop it. These huge leaps in logic.
She gets starring roles on 2 shows, and that's it.
That's it. That's all you get. Mm-hmm. If you blow one, then you got the second one to fall back.
You get one more. You get one chance.
one shot. That's why you don't see Matthew Fox in nothing anymore.
Well, he was Party of 5 before Lost. Yeah, that was his 2.
That was it. Exactly. See, you proved my point. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. I also, when I first got into this show, is when I was a youth pastor 10 years ago. And there was a group of teens that they loved this show. I'm like, all right, I'll give it a watch just because of that. So then I watched it, and then we had a text thread going. And I actually, in the text thread, we all changed our names to different characters. And in commemoration of that, my name today on our little walkthrough here is Chief Weber, because he was one of my early favorites. Love Chief Weber a lot.
One of my favorites too.
Yeah, that's who you like.
Yeah, and then we changed ours to George O'Malley.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see you having a soft spot for George. Emma, who's your favorite? I know it's hard because there's a lot of different ones and they come and go and etc. But who's 1 or 2 of your top characters?
I really like Christina. I don't even really know why. She's just so serious, but yet somehow it's just funny how she's really serious.
I just tell them how she's one of my least favorites.
Yeah, same here. For a serious character, even though she has some comedic lines, I like Miranda. I think the no-nonsense type personality works really well with Miranda, but not as much with Christina to me.
Yeah, she's also one of my favorites too, especially when she gets mad at the interns.
Yeah. Which is every episode in the beginning.
Yeah. Who else? So you like Miranda and Christina. Who else?
Yeah.
I like a lot of the magic characters. So Meredith, Alex, Christina, Izzy, and George.
I thought we were I didn't realize that was a thing. I thought we were talking about a completely different show for a second. I don't remember magic in this, but
the 5 interns from the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. I liked when Owen showed up. I liked Sloan. I liked some of his personality, but I really liked Owen when he showed up. I think he took over for Weber for my favorite character once he popped in.
I did not like him at first. I thought he was annoying because he pretty much just when he like first got there, like he pretty much just like the first episode he appeared in, he pretty much just like took over like the whole hospital and like as if he was like working there, and he he did this. He convinced a doctor that has never done that. This study had only been like studied a few like one other time I think to try to get a man to walk again, and he almost died because Owen Hunt tried to convince that person because he thought he knew, which he ended up did living and ended up walking, but it was just I did not like him.
Yeah. I think for me, one thing that helped me with Owen is I'd seen the actor before in the short-lived show called Journeyman. I don't know if you remember that at all, Brian. I almost called you George. So it's kind of like a Quantum Leap type episode, a mixture of like not episode, TV show. It was a mixture of Quantum Leap and like the Time Traveler's Wife. Like a guy could go, but like instead of it going into other people, he would just randomly show up at different points in time, and he never knew how long he was going to be there, and never knew when he was time traveling next, etc. I thought it was a really interesting premise, and I liked it a lot. And so when he came on, I'm like, hey, it's this guy that didn't get much of a shot after that one season episode or TV show. But you were going to say something else, Brian, about a different character that you really liked. What did I cut you off with?
I like, in addition to those guys, I mean, all characters have a good purpose to them, but I like Dr. Weber a lot. He's interesting where it's kind of it's like the stark contrast, because I was telling Emma a little bit about I used to watch, me and you both watch Scrubs. I know Emma hasn't seen it yet, but it's such a stark contrast to the chief of medicine, Dr. Kelso.
Yes,
like where he's actually caring and not just all about the bottom line, and in that. And who else do I like? It's weird because in the very beginning you hate, at least I hated Alex, and then like pretty quick after you realize, oh, he's not a complete tool.
You did mention you did mention how you liked Miranda too.
Oh yeah, that's right. Miranda is good, another good one.
Yeah,
because that kind of sassy character can sometimes be insufferable, but she matches it with enough like caring personality that it's not like she's just overtaking, because she threads that line perfectly. And like the moment I watched the one recently where Shepard is operating on her husband while there's a bomb in a patient down the hall.
Yep.
And the bomb squad telling him, you need to get out of here. Like the chief of surgery is going to tell you to get out. And he's just like, the chief doesn't scare me. Miranda Bailey scares me.
Yes.
That's a good line.
That's a great episode too. Well, before we like get into too much other stuff, I know I jumped the shark here on talking about characters versus just the overall feel. So Brian, after a season and a half or 2 seasons, pretty much with the extra episodes you watch probably about 2 seasons worth. What are your thoughts of Grey's Anatomy overall?
Overall, I do like it. It is a show that keeps you going, because it's a balance. Because on your end, Matt, I totally agree with you. You said one hospital, even the ones I saw, some of them have a plane crash, there's a bomb, there's a fire, like whatever you can imagine. It's happened in this one hospital, even though it spans 20 years. It's a little unrealistic.
A flood.
Apparently there's a flood. I haven't seen the flood episode yet. But you want it to be more exciting than real life, because if you think about it, no one would want to watch 20 years of my life straight, because it's not that interesting. And I think most of us would have moments like we all have interesting stories in life, but not enough interesting stories to fill up that much. So you have to bend the truth and have exaggeration in order to just have it be watchable.
Yep.
And even though it goes over the top, shows always set a level of believability. And as long as you stay within that scope, and this show kind of sets that from early on, like this is the level of believability for this show, where it's going to be crazy and wacky.
Yeah. And I have no problem with like the crazy outlandish stuff. Like we're going to get into our favorite episodes in a minute. And one of my favorite episodes is a very crazy premise of a shooter coming to the hospital. Mm-hmm. But as crazy as that is, the thing that threw me off with this show is as it's going on, it gets to a point of like, okay, there's so much. And this show needs to come to a close. And so that's where I got thrown off with it of like, I got 10 seasons probably into it, maybe more. And I'm like, I feel like every episode I've seen a version of this in another one of these episodes. So I felt like at that point I was okay to step away. And I rarely like cut off shows in the middle of watching it. But this one I was like, I don't think I can keep trekking along.
Well, yeah, and there was one episode where there was like a psych person. Do you remember that? We watched it together. And
Oh,
you were like, this is strike one for. It was in the first season, I think it was. It was like one of the first episodes you watched, and you're like, this is strike one for this show because there's like this. That's just too.
Well, what was it that bothered me so much? I'm trying to remember.
I
remember saying that, but I don't remember why.
It was a psych person that he believed he could predict the future and just say.
Oh yeah, it's like this show shouldn't be a supernatural type show.
See, I like some like episodes like that. Like there was an episode of House where there was a character who had this syndrome where he was just mirroring anyone, like the person with the most power in the room, and so he would mirror their personality, and that was his that's what he had going on, and they had to figure out how to fix him. And that, I know that's not supernatural, but it's this weird, obscure, like almost type of supernatural type thing where it's like, how would he know some of the things that he would know? Like, you can't read someone that well, sort of thing. And so I enjoyed like that little bit of a break from some of the more grounded episodes. So I don't have a problem if it does that maybe once a season or once every other season, just toys with, oh, was that maybe real, without like really saying, yes, this is supernatural.
The closest thing to that in real life actually was with you, Matt. I remember it being frustrating in youth group when we played Mafia, because you would just watch everyone when they got the cards and you'd be like, they're Mafia, they're Mafia.
No one likes playing Mafia with me. And then even then I'd be like, they're Mafia, just to see if had they respawn, and then you'd be like, no, and I'm like, oh, what? Yep, I was right. They actually are Mafia.
I think one time I purposely didn't even look at my card at first because that way I can't give you anything. I think I waited until we all went to sleep to look and see if I was Mafia or not.
I ain't giving him nothing.
Yeah, you can't read me if I don't know.
That's true. If I have no idea what I'm doing, no one else does.
Yeah.
All right. So let's jump into our favorite. Did I skip, Emma, about your overall thoughts of the show? Because I think we might have gotten that right.
Yeah, I think okay. I answered.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll jump into our favorite episodes, and I think a great place to start is with that season, I think it's 8 finale of the 2-parter with Gary Clark coming into the hospital with a gun. And I felt like this was the best episode of the best 2 episodes of the show, because it was very dramatic, of course. Yeah. It tied up, because it was a season finale, it tied up a lot of the relationship arcs and issues that were going on. And it gave all these characters like that threat of death to be able to address like what's really important, what do I actually care about, while also have a very compelling, like realistic threat looming over you. Like this character, this Gary Clark, was just this force that he kept popping up in these different places, and they played it in this like you never know who he's going to interact with, and you just know, and early on when like no one knows that he's got a gun and he's shooting people, you're like, you guys, there's a problem. You guys need to deal with this problem. Don't just stand there talking about your relationship stuff. Take this seriously.
Well,
so he's really well done.
He's in the elevator with Christina, and he easily could have shot her, and he's like frustrated because no one's telling her. And then because she gives him directions to Derek's office of all people,
he like didn't get mad and like
he didn't shoot her.
Yeah.
So yeah, the first girl that he shoots in the head, was that just a random character?
No, that was an intern. I don't remember her name.
Yeah, I can't remember her name, but she was a recurring guest star for this season. That they did this merger with this other hospital, and that's where we got Avery and Kepner and a couple others, and the other guy that died in those 2 episodes. And so they there's a certain point of the season where it's like it had a really bloated cast. We had a lot of these characters. Like there's so many characters to keep stock of. So when he comes in and immediately kills a character that has been in probably over 10 episodes, and like just right away, and you're like, whoa, and then shoots Karev right after that, there's this like, okay, anyone is on the table. It's the season finale or the second to last episode. Yeah. People are going to die. Someone already has. Who is going to be the people? And so it was really well done that way too.
That makes me think that they probably brought those characters in that season knowing they were going to plan for that in the season finale, because they want to build them up enough so that it's a shocking death, but without killing. Like Alex didn't die, and Shepard didn't die, and like Christina didn't die, and all these characters.
Well, then then in one of the people they brought over from the other hospital, I think the hospital was Mercy West, and the one of them they brought over, if I remember right, they cut one of them right away too.
Yeah,
because there was either like too many or they just weren't. Well, Richard Weber told them that one of them would be cut, and then she ended up getting cut.
well, it's kind of like
wasn't
kinda
that
like,
April and she came back? Because I remember April got fired because she couldn't she didn't remember to check for smoke inhalation or something like that, and something that basic that you check for, and someone died because she didn't check for that, and then she got fired, but somehow came back.
I don't remember if it was April. I feel like it was somebody else, but then April also got fired, but because this person got cut from the program, and I don't think they came back. I think it was a different intern.
At first, when you said cut, I was thinking actually cut to death with a knife. I'm like, well, there's a shooter, there's a plane crash. Of course, someone got cut to deth. But no, I guess they got cut.
There's a guy with knives for hands just walking around, swinging them around.
Well, it wouldn't even be the craziest thing that happened on this show.
That's sadly true. So yeah, that is definitely peak, like I said. But what are some other favorite episodes? Emma, let's hear from you, because I know that you gave Brian 5 episodes, so I'm guessing your favorite episode is probably one of those 5.
Yeah, it's all of the. I don't really have one specific episode. I like all of the dramatic ones that you're at the edge of your seat, because if it's your first time watching, you never know what's gonna happen next.
Yeah, I also liked. Go ahead, Brian. What are you gonna say?
Well, one thing. So I knew going into watching the show, I knew that Derek was going to die at some point. And I watched the shooting episode before I watched the Derek dying episode. So I thought he was going to die in that one.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorites is the one I just finished up today, actually, which is the 2-parter, where there's the patient with the bomb in his chest that Meredith's got to hold, while at the same time Shepard is doing brain surgery on Bailey's husband while Bailey is in labor. That's a good 2-parter.
Yeah, and Kyle Chandler brings a really good gravitas to that role of the guest star, and so he was this great foil for, and apparently Christina Ricci was also guest star in there, but Kyle Chandler was a really good foil for
Christina Ricci.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that until just now.
And so I really liked, because there was. I'll be honest, it was a little annoying. They had this arc with Meredith where she was kind of self-sabotaging, not really valuing her own life. And so you see that by her just being the one to grab the bomb. And that was one of the instances of that acting out this almost suicidal behavior, but not quite. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't like completely that arc, because I thought that it could have done it differently, and I just didn't like where it went. But to at least have it come to a head in something really strong like this, I thought was a really good way to put her in danger, while also, fleshing out that side of her and kind of putting a cap. I think that it kind of went away after this episode.
No, there wasn't. After that episode, there was another episode of her not really, wanting to live and stuff, and that I don't remember how much after, but I don't remember if I gave it to you or not. It was the ship one, which I kind of forgot about until I just recently watched it again.
No, I don't think
and I think I watched it after I gave you episodes, so I probably would have given you it if I watched it before. But
was it the one that ended with her almost drowning?
Yeah, where she didn't even really fight to swim. Yeah. She just kind of let herself sink.
I remember that now. Yeah, I think that might have been the one that I didn't like. Whereas this was a solid turn in that suicidal thing in the back of her mind. Whereas that one of just frankly giving up when you easily could swim to the surface was come on.
Yeah.
At the point I'm at on my watch, minus the episodes I've seen in the future, are Meredith is just about to find out, she's piecing it together that Dr. Weber had an affair with her mom. She doesn't know yet, but she's about to know.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I shared a while ago when we were talking about emotional moments in shows, I shared about an episode of Grey's that I gave you to watch that had, what's his name from Mighty Ducks? Do you remember the actor's name?
Fulton. His name. What's his name?
You pointed that out to me in the episode we watched.
His character is Fulton from Mighty Ducks. His name is something Henson is his actor's name.
It was the dad of that little girl.
The dad of the little girl.
And I loved that little B plot because that was so heartbreaking to me, of watching a dad in futility try and save his daughter, and in his attempts to save her, he was going to miss being there for her as she died. And so him like holding her, and Miranda like pleading with him to be like, she needs her dad for this, and him just holding her in his arms, and describing, because he told her they're going to go to Mexico, and describing how beautiful it is down there. Like, that whole scene is just so heartbreaking, and it was really well done. One of the best little arcs, little stories in the whole series, I think.
Yeah, and at the end of that, someone like Miranda basically says to someone, "I didn't do a single medical thing at all today." And was it George, or was someone told her like, you know what you did was heroic, and I think you know that too.
Yeah. I don't remember who that was.
Was that too early for Arizona? Because I thought it was her.
No, that was too early. Oh,
maybe it was because
it was because Miranda was on Arizona's service.
Yes,
it was Arizona.
Look at me remembering stuff. Woohoo!
See, I just like I'm getting it. I'm watching the later ones with like Arizona and Callie and Teddy, and then I'm watching the earlier ones with George and Izzy. So they're kind of getting mixed together.
Yeah. So there's a lot with that. There's a lot of sad moments in this show. That to me took the cake for mine. What would you guys say was one or a couple of your saddest moments or episodes?
You want to go first?
Definitely whenever like a main character like Derek died, because it made like a big impact on like the show.
Well, okay, Derek's death was an interesting episode because first they set it up like a whole big Derek's a superhero at the accident thing, and then at the end it's they mess with your emotions because he like, hey, I knew he's gonna
live.
Well, because after like the whole he's narrating it in his head because he can't speak, but he knows what needs to be done.
Yeah,
he's like, I'm gonna die, and then it cuts to Meredith going to the hospital, and he's all fine. He's like, I'm gonna be great, everything's great. All of a sudden, then it snaps back. Oh, that was a dream, and he is dead. Like, what? We thought he was dead. Then you made us think he was alive. And then no, he's dead again. Like, stop messing with us.
Don't toy with my emotions.
Like, even though I knew he died at some point, and I knew that Emma gave me that episode, so I figured this has to be it. It's like the Derek Showcase finale episode. When she came back in and he was fine, I'm like, okay, maybe this isn't the episode. And then, it is. Well, okay, it is.
Well, you thought it was going to be like the first when you watched the shooting episode, because you watched the shooting episode before Derek dying episode, and you thought that's when he died because he got shot.
That's true. I did think he was going to die there, especially since they hadn't been, because I didn't know the two other people, and they were working on Alex. I figured Alex wasn't going to die. I thought maybe Derek was going to be the big finale death of that one.
Nice.
I asked Emma earlier. We can talk about other characters better than Derek. I kind of derailed your question, but
that's okay.
When that episode aired, was it known that Patrick Dempsey was leaving the show, or was it kind of like, or did people watch it and think, oh, like main character's dead?
See, I watched it late too, that I knew that he was leaving. I didn't know that he died. I just knew that he was like where the show was at currently, he wasn't on it anymore. So I'm like, well, at some point he's going off. I probably assumed he died. So I don't think I had a huge shock, but I think I was probably the same way waiting for you, but I just was not as confident about it as you are with knowing he died.
Well, yeah, and then I heard from like my friends when he died. I think I was in 5th grade because my 5th grade teacher was really obsessed with watching that show, and so she like told my friends because they watched the show, and I hadn't yet started the show. And she said, like, Derek died and stuff, and they were all shocked. And I was like, who's Derek? And then I started watching the show, and I was like, oh, Derek. And so, like, I knew it was coming, and there was, like, a few moments when you're like, is this it? Is this it? And, like, one of them would be in season 5, the first episode, I think it is. Meredith has a dream that Derek dies, and you don't know it's a dream because in the beginning of the episode they just show Meredith like running into the hospital and asking Christina like, is it bad? And then she goes and looks through the window of Derek's hospital room and just sees him intubated, and Dr. Bailey like taking off her gloves, like looking at a clock and mouthing words, and like she starts screaming. And so like the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, this is definitely it. And then it turns out it's a dream, and I'm like, what the heck?
Why would you do this to my emotions? How about Lexi's death? Because I felt like that was another episode we watched. I felt like that was another like big death. I think Lexi's and George's were both big deaths, even though George was something as simple as getting hit by a bus and not something as crazy as crashing a whole plane and people lose their legs and paralysis and etc.
Well, it was kind of sad because, you know, her and Meredith had just started like becoming closer, and finally like not like Meredith started actually like liking her, and so all of a sudden she just dies off, and it's like, well, they just start having a good relationship.
Okay, I got a question since I've only seen the smattering. In the early ones, there's no mention at all about Meredith having a sister, and even when she go in to visit her mom in the nursing home, no one says. So, do you think they retconned that she had a sister, or do you think they just they retconned?
Absolutely. I feel like this show does retconning like all the time. Like, oh, by the way, because I was in that one episode that you had us watch of the explosion. It ends that season on, oh, Owen, your sister's alive. Like, okay, he had a sister? I didn't even realize this.
Yeah, they were making a big deal of that. I figured that was something that we knew as an audience before that.
Yeah, we must have, but I didn't. So.
Yeah, and then I've seen out of the later ones I've seen, Miranda has a different husband, so clearly she either gets widowed or divorced at some point between the gap that I've seen.
Yeah.
And then he goes to be on Chicago Fire. So
yeah, and then I found that out not that long ago actually, because I saw this
Mm-hmm.
video on YouTube and it looked like him. I was like, oh, maybe it's just like a different show, a different actor. But then I saw him and Miranda's kid, but like Miranda's kid Tuck, like on that show too, and I was like, what the heck? And then I find out that it's like because he became a firefighter.
Yep.
So I was like, oh, so he must have just like they just made a show about him and the firefighter.
That was one of the last arcs, now I think about it, that I remember is his kind of like him being too much of this hero type and making like rash decisions that weren't the safest just to like make a big splash, you know, and that it was unsafe as a doctor. He ends up getting fired because of that. So that was the last arc that I remember quite vividly from the show.
Yeah. So, and also, with all these characters leaving the show, I'm sure a lot of them were the actor choosing to leave the show. But I can't think of many things that these actors were in other than Grey's Anatomy. Like Patrick Dempsey seemed like he was a big name, but I can't think of like a movie he was in or what other show he was in.
Like Enchanted. Now he was in a good amount of stuff.
Yeah, because these characters leave. These people leave the show to go do the other stuff. What's the other stuff they did? Like Katherine Heigl was big for like a year, maybe two, and then now no one talks about her anymore.
Yeah, well, she kind of shot herself in the foot with how she was too. Like she turned down an Emmy or something like that when she was nominated for it because she's like, oh, like she thought it was beneath her, sort of thing. And then like she went on record of talking about the movies that made her famous and be like, oh, these are stupid. Why would people watch these movies? Like Knocked Up. And so like people like that kind of propelled you to stardom. So I guess you're not grateful for that. So
yeah, that's always dumb when they're like the things they made them famous they don't want to do. Like, you know, even Bryan Cranston came back for the weird Power Ranger reboot movie because that was his origin stories.
Yeah, and I mean, Bryan Cranston can easily dog on it and just talk a little bit about like, oh, this was silly back then. Sure, it was, but he doesn't like. He's not like, this is stupid. I'm so mad I did it.
Yeah. Or who's the actor who plays Alex?
Justin Chambers. I feel like I've heard his name before, and like when I googled him, I felt like I've heard his name before, but I like couldn't think of like what movie it was.
Hey, do judges poop in fields? Nope, Justin Chambers.
Oh, and then actually, I do
So
remember.
dumb.
I do remember what movie it was. I knew his name from the movie Trolls.
He's in Trolls?
Yeah, he plays the blue guy.
Oh.
Well,
You know who else is in Trolls? Raj from Big Bang Theory is in Trolls.
and so is Zoe Deschanel from New Girl.
And Justin Timberlake. Welcome to our troll.
Anna Kendrick. Look at that. Let's just sit here and name Trolls characters or Trolls actors. Should we do that? No. Okay. Where were we? Oh, okay. So this is a question just for Emma because you and I have no way to predict this. But Emma, I'm sure you've seen all the episodes, right? You've gotten into,
I've seen up to season 19.
So the question is, are you looking at the future of the show? Because what we do know is that we do know Ellen Pompeo, is that her name?
Yeah.
That she's not going to be on the show anymore. So the Gray of Grey's Anatomy is disappearing. So what is the show going to look like without her? What do you think, Emma?
I think it's going to be bad because in season 19, she only appeared in a few episodes and only for like a short amount of time. And that season was really boring. And there was like none of the original characters were really in it. And so it's like, it didn't like prediction of like the show. They're not going to get as many viewers, or at least that's what I think, because it's basically like a whole new show still with the name Grey's Anatomy because like none of like the same characters are in it. And like the main character is leaving that the show is named after.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Should change the name to who's still in it? Weber's Anatomy? That sounds weird. That doesn't roll off the tongue as well.
Yeah. And it's like the show does by now have a deep bench of characters. So like I feel like it might even just seem like a spin-off. Kind of like how the last season of Scrubs was. But that
I was going to bring that up. It's like everything that you're describing, like I feel like I've seen that show before. The main cast is not as involved in it, and they just kind of are popping up every now and then. What medical show have I seen do this? So, yeah, we do not need another Scrubs here, or another Scrubs. Scrubs, it's really funny that Scrubs somehow had 3 different finales, and only one of them was good.
Yeah.
But the one that was good really was good.
Yeah, it was. The season 8 finale of Scrubs.
Yeah, I've never seen that show, but you keep like recommending it to me.
Yeah, it's a slapstick comedy. There are some dramatic moments like Grey's Anatomy, but it's like a sitcom that sometimes delves into being dramatic.
But what's really funny is that if you compare Scrubs and Grey's Anatomy, there are a lot of similarities because Grey's Anatomy kind of has this dynamic of like a high school cafeteria, like that sort of class system. And I think that's something that's intriguing to people is that it's this primetime soap opera and nothing's more dramatic than being in high school and figuring out where your role is in high school. So there's all these doctors that are in that same way, whereas you get the more juvenile side of that with Scrubs, and they play into the comedy of it. And so I feel like they're two sides of the same coin. But personally, I prefer Scrubs because I do like the jokes, and I do like that they can balance it with really good emotion.
Yeah.
Well, like you said they both do like a singing episode, but you said you like the Scrubs one better.
I do like the Scrubs musical episode better than the musical episode of Grey's Anatomy, which you gave me, Matt, because it was mainly just Callie herself, like imagining herself singing, and a couple other characters sing. Whereas in Scrubs, like all the main characters have a big musical number.
I personally did not even. I mean, I've never seen the Scrubs episode because I've never watched Scrubs. But I like the Grey's Anatomy episode. I did not like that episode. Like I wanted to see it, but like being the first time that I watched it, in case there was anything important, I didn't end up skipping. But it was just like really boring to me, and I did not like it.
See, I like that episode. I actually really liked the emotional weight of them all working together to save Izzy and seeing them come together and as they're singing to do that. I thought that was really well done. So I enjoyed the episode. Yeah. What did I say? Oh, yeah, Izzy. Wrong. Completely different character. Yeah, saving Callie. And the one thing that I didn't like about that episode is they have this one portion in the middle that's this musical number where they're like, we need another song. Let's do something lighter. Let's talk about the different couples that they have and have them flirt with each other like they're gonna have sex. I'm like, Callie's life is hanging in the balance and time is of the essence. No one's going home to go like see if they're gonna do that or not. It's like everyone's hanging around the hospital waiting for the good news of Callie. It's not this just is off brand for this episode.
It also seemed like, all right, we have all these characters they haven't sang yet. Let's just jam them all into one musical number and have them all sing for 2 seconds, and then we'll get back to the people who can sing. They were clearly showcasing the people who can sing better.
Yes. Yeah.
And my
No
guess is
Owen.
they knew that the actress with Callie could sing, and that's why they put her in that position of being the one who is living or dying.
Yeah, probably. All right, I got a couple more questions here that I'll throw your guys' way. So, one thing that is like the rise and fall how characters go, or and like characters in shows, is how well they interact and work together. And so you get some really good duos in different shows. But what are some of the 1-2 duos that you get of relationships in this show? What are your favorites?
There's a lot of good ones. Early on, one of the ones that I like is the Burke and Shepard duo, because they have like a professional respect for each other. Like when it comes to work, they're not going to interfere with each other, but clearly they both are a little competitive. They both want to work themselves up to being chief.
Yeah.
And it's just like that rivalry with the professionalism. It's kind of an interesting dynamic there.
Yeah, I agree completely. I like that dynamic. What about you, Emma?
I don't want to be basic, but I love Meredith and Christina. Like when they're together, it's just like really funny.
It's not basic. It's like if we asked on Boy Meets World, who's the best duo? Well, we actually did an episode about that.
Yeah, we did just that exact episode.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go back to Scrubs. Turk and JD. That's a great relationship, 100%. So there's no problem picking like the one that they highlight. I had time to think about this, and I actually haven't thought about it. So let me kick the can back your way and ask this in a separate way. How about romantic relationships? What do you think is your favorite romantic relationship on this show?
Obviously, it kind of hinges in the beginning on the Meredith and Derek and like the will they won't they kind of thing, and that lasts for a little while. But even like Christina and Burke are interesting. I'm doing earlier ones because that's what I've seen more of. Because it's so interesting because like it's the power dynamics and like their personalities are so different. Like at Thanksgiving, she's all upset because he's cooking dinner, and she's like, I just want to go to the hospital and drink.
Yeah, well, I don't like their relationship. I don't know. I think if you keep watching, you would find out why. Have you seen the episodes, like the wedding episode where they get married yet?
No.
Okay, well then you'll find out why. But I don't like that relationship. Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Matt?
Romantic. I think I have to agree. I did like Miranda and Ben, the new guy that she ends up with. And I really liked their dynamic early on, because I think one thing that really was great about that, although I'll agree, I liked Meredith and Derek, but what I like about Miranda and Ben is Miranda was a woman of a certain age at a certain point of her life that probably didn't feel very attractive and didn't feel like that there was a lot of options for her. Maybe it's not that she didn't feel attractive, but it just didn't feel like she would ever be wanted in the same way that she was when she was 20-something again. And so for this younger guy to come in, he's still close to her age, but a little bit younger. And for him to like purposefully pursue her and to show her how much he does care and finds her alluring and all of that, I'm like, that's a really good dynamic, especially for someone who could feel like they're past that point in their life.
Yeah. I could do that for sure.
Yeah, and then I liked Izzy and Alex. They were a good duo, especially when Meredith and I think it was Meredith and Derek were going to get married, but Izzy was sick. She had cancer, and they didn't know like how long she was going to live. I mean, she obviously ended up surviving, but they end up taking over the wedding because Izzy couldn't make it, and then it was like a surprise of, and now they're going to get married in the hospital room instead of Meredith and Derek's wedding.
Yeah. I remember that, but I don't remember, honestly, too much about their relationship, sadly. But yeah, I can't remember if I even liked them or not. So, too bad. No one gets to find out my thoughts. Keep them to myself.
It's like we said earlier, if you don't know, we can't know.
Exactly. All right. Here's one of the last bigger questions here before we just, then devolve into craziness and probably end up talking about different shows, because that's what we do in every episode.
We've already done that here.
We already have. It's gonna get worse. Which character do you think had the biggest impact when they left the show? I mean, speaking of other shows, like with Office, the show is completely different when Michael leaves. Like, is there any character that once they go, the show completely changes?
Oh well, obviously, Meredith. Like I said in season 19, it just got boring. Like there was nothing. Not they weren't following around the same person they've been following around the past how many years, and all those seasons. So they're now following around all these like new characters, and like the new characters, they're good, but it's not Meredith and like the original cast.
For me, when I'm jumping around episodes that I've seen, I definitely notice when Derek's gone and when Christina's gone. Like they're probably, I mean, the lead is Meredith, so it's like her best friend and her love interest. When like they're kind of like her number two jump off
They're
points.
gonna have an impact on her.
Yeah, her impact on her and on the show. So those are the two biggest ones that I've seen so far. I haven't seen any without Meredith yet because I haven't gotten that part.
Yeah, neither have I. So because of that, like for me, I would say Derek is the big swing where a lot of the greatness of the show was before Derek left. And it's not that he is such an amazing character that we have to have him. Like Derek's a good character, but you definitely feel his absence. And they also make you feel it because they really hinge on that with Meredith and her emotions and like how she is with it, because she takes it hard, rightfully so. Her husband died. And so you see her go through that grieving process and you feel it yourself. But then they continually bring it back up, and it's like they themselves, I don't feel like, can ever let Derek go either.
Yeah.
Brian agrees with the many episodes he's seen since Derek died.
I've seen a couple without Derek, but obviously they've only really ever mentioned him in passing a couple times in the later ones. I started watching the one right after he died just to kind of see the reaction, because basically no one but Derek and Meredith is in that episode.
Oh yeah, I don't remember that episode very well.
But then the next one is basically like when they are explaining what happened. They're all talking in general, and she's just like, Derek's dead. And like,
yeah, she goes to the hospital, and like nobody really believed her at first. Everyone's like, "What?" Like, she walks into the hospital. I think it was like the attending's lounge. She walks in, and everybody's just staying there, carrying on with their day. Like nobody knew that anything that even bad happened to Derek.
Yeah,
because he was at a whole different hospital. He was around a place, which is why he couldn't call, like 911 for his person that he was trying to save.
Oh yeah, because there was no cell service.
There was no cell service, so like it's not like he could call Meredith or anybody for help.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I can remember a little bit of that episode. What I remember, I'm sorry, I got drunk all of a sudden. I don't remember. Back in my day.
They set up that he was driving somewhere. He needed to catch a plane somewhere. He's like, I know a shortcut to the airport, and he goes through this tunnel. He drops his phone. He can't find his phone. Then there's an accident in front of him between two cars, and you think, oh, he's gonna crash. He doesn't crash, but since there's no cell service, he like jumps out and is able to like be big hero man and saves the other people in the other cars and gets them to the hospital. And then immediately after that, he gets in his car, keeps looking for his phone, and then gets smacked by a semi and gets brought to the same hospital with all the people he saved. And it was actually the little girl who he saved with her mom recognized him and basically is like, this is the doctor. This is the guy who helped us all. And they're like, oh crap, this is the doctor. Like, and they realize who he is because they said his name is Derek.
Yeah, and I remember in that you had the narration from Derek as he's trying to help, like, kind of will the doctor to see what the problem is because he knows it, but he can't communicate it.
Yeah, he's not verbal. He's aware and alert, but he can't speak, which is like being trapped. That's terrifying, like being trapped in your own mind.
And you ended up
locked in syndrome.
He ended up getting these doctors that had no idea what the heck they were doing, and so I was just like raging when I was watching this. I was like, "Are you guys stupid? Like,
because we're doctors, we know what to do."
Yeah.
But there was like a young female doctor. He's like, I like her. And then the other guy came in, is like bossing her around, and his narration was like, he probably is not wanting to take her seriously because she's younger and a woman, and he's trying to tell her like, stand your ground. You're wanting to do the right thing. So like, there was the doctor who was wanting to do the stuff that would have saved him, and the other guy who was just arrogant, just overpowering her in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember a little bit of that as you're explaining it.
Well, I watched it like a few days ago, so.
Well, that would do it. All right. Hey, one thing I wanted to hit on, and then like we can kind of go from here, is that the other thing that stopped me with Grey's Anatomy that I didn't like is that there are shows like I want to compare it to House again, because House had points of view, because that's kind of one of these things that these shows do, is that they'll bring up different points of view on things that are like hot button issues and political ideas and stuff like that. And because of the liberal lean of Grey's Anatomy, I didn't ever felt like they gave any other side the time of day. Whereas like House, I felt like House did a really good job of, hey, like I don't line up with 90% of the things that Dr. House agrees with. And so like he'll bring up a point of view about like anti-God and I'm like, I don't agree with that. And then there'd be another character in the episode that would be a good foil to that and would bring up the good other side of it, and then would kind of leave it at, okay, audience, you get to kind of decide for yourself. And so I thought that was always a really good way that House did it. Whereas I don't feel like Grey's does that justice. They kind of have their idea. And so because of that, it comes off preachy versus coming off as thought-provoking. And so after 10 seasons of that was another thing I'm like, I don't think I want to keep going on this. So those are my two big cutoff factors that I had.
Yeah, I haven't seen a ton of the political side yet. The closest thing to political I've seen is when Callie's dad, who's Hector Elizondo, shows up and he's like, "Oh, you're gonna move in with me, and I'm gonna take over, and you're not gonna be a lesbian anymore." That's like the only somewhat political thing I've ever seen in that show so far. But I can see how it would lean left, because most things lean left these days.
Yeah, I mean, like, just even the whole idea of healthcare and like how healthcare is done, like in a show about healthcare, 100% they're going to bump into those issues, and you either ignore them or you bring them up. And I thought House always did a good job of bringing them up, but not like saying this is for sure the correct thing or this is for sure, just giving different points of view.
I will say this is a political moment. Probably the point where I lean the most left probably would be in healthcare, because like I go to the doctor for something small, and even after insurance, I get a huge bill. I'm like, really?
Yeah. I feel, without getting too political, I just feel like healthcare is crap, and neither side knows what to do with it. Like everyone has their ideas, but it's just like you can't. At a certain point, it's just stop charging $1,000 for a pill of Tylenol. That might fix some things. And so,
well,
there's go ahead.
In Grey's Anatomy, there was even a few episodes where like some people couldn't afford it, so they were like worried about like you can't give me this test because I can't afford it. I recently just watched because in me rewatching it, I just watched an episode of a person who their insurance expired at midnight because they couldn't afford it anymore, and so then they tried to like fit in all their surgeries and stuff, and Miranda ends up just putting down, like lying and putting down like the surgery started earlier than what it was, like just so that they can get it so that his insurance will cover it.
Yeah. Well, interesting. This is going to Scrubs again. There's an interesting point in Scrubs where the doctors are treating this one guy for these symptoms and trying to get through this like expensive medication, I think is what it was. And then they realize that his daughter, who's been visiting him, is like, they're seeing the signs of what he's supposed to have with her. And they realize, oh, like they're faking it, that he has it because he has really good insurance.
Yeah.
He's trying to get the medication and then just slide it over to her.
Yeah. And see, something like that, I think that's a great storyline. That, like, in and of itself brings up the issue of, their issue with health insurance versus not having it. And, like, what would someone do in that position? And I think that's a great thing. Like, someone could do something like this. Is that right? Is it wrong? Etc. And they don't make the decision for you, but they bring it up to get you thinking about it. And I think that should be more how these shows should go versus trying to lead you to this is what you should think. So.
See, back when I worked at the gas station, I would sometimes not charge people for their fountain drinks just to be nice. I mean, that's the same thing as free surgery, right?
That's exactly the same thing. Because the fountain drink markup is 1,000%. That's it.
Yeah, I would do that so often. I just like, oh, I forgot to ring up your drink. It's okay.
Actually, the fountain drink markup is quite exorbitant, but
but it's still cheap.
It is. No, that's true.
Yeah.
Like $1 for it is like you paid 2 pennies for the amount that
that's
we're
true.
getting. So
Yeah.
we have a gas station in town, actually, a convenience store that they still are doing 16-ounce quarter pops, and so it's a quarter for 16-ounce. And I was like, this is the best deal I've ever had, and it is inflation proof. And I'm like, I should just bring in my own cup because I'm sure they're spending more on the cups for this than they are on the actual syrup. But I'm like, if a company can do this and not go under, then how much are you really paying on the syrup for a pop?
Yeah. Also, when I worked at Quick Trip, I ate so much unauthorized free food, and guess what? Quick Trip didn't go under.
I did that when I worked for Burger King when I was a teenager.
Oh yeah, Subway too. I've worked a lot of places.
How about you, Emma? Where have you worked?
Nowhere yet.
Trivia time. So last week we talked about these master manipulators and like characters that just are always manipulating in the TV show. So one of them that we brought up was Lionel Luthor from Smallville, played by John Glover. Now, John Glover is no stranger to DC projects, so I was asking what other characters has he played in DC projects or movies, and he was in 2 different Batman projects. One of them was he was on the Batman animated series as the Riddler, and then in another one he was in Batman Forever, and he was the doctor at the beginning of the movie. Hang on, I'm looking up the name. I just realized I don't remember his name, but he was the doctor at the beginning of the movie that got Uma Thurman to turn into Poison Ivy in that greenhouse down in Brazil or Argentina or whatever it was. He was that guy in Batman Forever, the movie. So
Nice. I didn't know that then or now.
Then or now. You still don't. I'm looking at the cast list and I know that it was him. I saw him. I'm just like trying to find what was the character's name. And it's not even on here. John Glover, Batman Forever. I'm curious now because it's a doctor or something.
Even within trivia, we're on tangents.
Oh, it wasn't Batman Forever. That's why. It was Batman and Robin because Poison Ivy was in that. He was Dr. Jason Woodrow. So nice. I just misspoke and had the wrong movie. But yeah, Batman and Robin or Batman the Animated Series. There you go. So I hear that, Emma, you have trivia for this week about Greys.
Yep. The trivia for this week is, what nickname did George get after he performed his first assisted surgery, which was an appendectomy?
Dr. Poophead. Got it.
Do you remember this?
I actually do.
Yes.
I got it.
Well, I knew it. I had just recently watched it, but yeah. So
well, that's you then.
Tune in next week to find out.
Dun dun dun. All right. Well, this time it was. I don't know why I was going to say it that way. This time it was great to have Emma on, implying that it wasn't last time. No, I was meaning to say, Emma, I'm glad we got to talk about a show that you liked instead of being forced to watch Power Rangers and have to tell us about your thoughts of it. So I'm glad we had this good episode. It was great to have you black. It was great to have you black, apparently. It was great to have you back. Again, I'm drunk tonight, guys, so it's just no words. But until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Emma.
And we're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.